Well, we are, it seems, emerging out of lockdown. No one quite knows what the next few weeks and months are going to bring and whether we'll get another wave of the virus. But hopefully, it seems that we are emerging out of the restrictions of the last year. More and more people are getting vaccinated, and hopefully, we're looking into a new future. And I've been reflecting on how this experience of emerging out of the pandemic is a little bit like Noah and his family as the flood subsides and they begin to look to a new future. In that story, there's that sense of tentativeness as Noah sends out a dove and it returns, and it sends out it again and returns, and gradually it brings back a little olive leaf. And then gradually it doesn't return at all. So there's that tentative looking for the future. And I guess there's something of that in all of us. What's it going to be like? It's going to be slow. It's not going to be instant. We're going to see how things work as we go on from here. There is, of course, that moment a little bit later in the story when Noah does come out of the ark and he plants a vineyard and gets blind drunk. And that's not something we want to imitate. Noah is not a perfect example of anything, but there are some things perhaps in this reading, this story from the Old Testament, that may help us as we reflect upon this particular time that's coming up as we emerge out of lockdown. It's interesting, the very first thing that Noah does when he comes out of the ark is to build an altar. To build an altar and offer sacrifice to God. And altars in the Old Testament are a mix of a number of different things going on at the same time. And I want to just focus on some of those things that worship in the Old Testament and this offering of sacrifice might have meant and what it might have contained. First of all, it's an offering of gratitude. He offers the sacrifice of worship, giving thanks for the deliverance of his family from the flood. And there's that element of, as we emerge out of lockdown, that we don't forget to give thanks. To give thanks for all that we have maybe learned over the past year or so. For the dedication of those volunteers, those members of the NHS, the scientists who worked at the vaccine over the time. We give thanks for the things that we have gained over this past year. We give thanks for the deliverance that we have experienced as we come out of this dreadful time, this pandemic that we've been through. One of the important things we will need to do as we emerge from this is to give thanks and not be like those people in the story of Jesus who received the gift of healing and went off without even bothering to give thanks to him. Gratitude, thanksgiving, needs to be a part of our experience and our expression as we come out of lockdown, to find ways to enable people to give thanks, to look around, to be grateful for what we have received. But the second aspect of what happens in that act of worship is an element of grieving. In the story, it talks about the curse of the flood that has come upon them. And there is bound to be, and it's important that there is an element of grieving as we come out of this, remembering not just what we've been grateful for, those things we've gained, but those things that we've lost, those people that we've lost that are no longer with us, those times when we haven't been able to see family and friends, those children and young people who've lost maybe a year of schooling and lost some friendships perhaps over that time. There is a proper grieving that needs to take place. And yes, within all the joy and gratitude of being able to see each other again, it's important that we make that moment of grieving at what has been lost, and we remember and we hold before God and each other that real sense of grief, and just to be living with that, especially for those for whom that's a very raw experience. But the third element of what happens when Noah comes out of the ark is a sense of gathering. We're told that he gathers not just his family, but he does gather his family, but he gathers all things. He's told, bring out with you every living thing that is of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth. There's that gathering that takes place as he emerges from the ark. And there'll be a sense in which the time comes when the moment is right, and it'll be in different places and different times, when we will need to gather in that same way. Gather our immediate families, meet again with those we haven't seen for some time. Gather our church communities to regather those who haven't met, those who've maybe connected online, maybe those who've drifted out of the habit of worship, just to explicitly say, let's gather again. Let's come together on a particular day, a particular Sunday, when we regather the church. But even that, more than that, regather our whole communities, every living thing. There'll be many people who are longing to meet again, And this is an opportunity for our churches to regather our communities, to celebrate, to give thanks, to be grateful, to grieve, but to gather at the same time as well. And maybe if we can do this well as churches, we can express gratitude, we can do that proper grieving, and we can gather people, then maybe the last thing will happen as well. Because the other thing that happens as Noah emerges from the ark is a proper sense of what we might call growing. He's told, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Now that seems a strange command perhaps at the time, because of course Noah is just himself and his family. There aren't that many people in his tribe, as it were. And yet he's told to grow and to multiply. And it may seem to us as we emerge from lockdown that the church may be just slimmed down a little. It may seem quite small, just like Noah's family felt quite small. And yet, with the promise of God, with the covenant of God with him, he had that sense that this was possible, that he might multiply and fill the earth. And maybe we need that sense as we emerge from lockdown again, that growth can come, growth in love for Christ, growth in service of our communities, and growth in numbers, as we find ways to invite people back into community again. As I was saying, I think there is this sense that many people have that they are longing for an opportunity to gather again, to meet in public. And that's an opportunity for the church to gather everyone together, to invite people. I often say the simplest way of sharing and spreading the faith of Jesus Christ is simply that line that says to someone, would you come to church with me on Sunday? Simple as that. And maybe this is an opportunity to do that, to invite people to the place where they can give thanks, where they can grieve, where they can gather. And so here I offer to you 4 words that may be important for us as we emerge out of lockdown: gratitude, grieving, gathering, and growing. Maybe these are words for these coming days as we long to see God's blessing on our church, our communities, and on our lives. Amen.